Tonight on Most Daring, rescuers put their lives on the line to reach a desperate man stuck at the edge of Niagara Falls.
At any time, he could be swept over, and all your efforts would have been for naught.
Plus, firefighters are locked in a race against time to free a worker crushed and trapped.
He was in dire straits. We didn't know if he was going to make it.
15 minutes, 10 minutes.
Then later, a lion tamer fights to save his brother from the jaws of death. These are the incredible true stories of heart-stopping rescues and everyday heroes who risk their lives so others could live. This is Most Daring.
Niagara Falls, a popular destination for so many, is today the site of an unfolding tragedy. A man teeters on the edge of death, wedged between a rock and a 170-foot drop into the roiling waters below. Firefighter Gary Corella has made 4 rescues from this treacherous river, but he's never seen anyone this close to the falls.
I was quite shocked at first that somebody could be standing there and not be swept over.
To save him, Gary and his fellow rescuers must put their own lives in jeopardy. Knee-deep in the icy torrent, the man struggles to keep his balance. Gary and another firefighter climb down into the water.
We really felt the clock ticking. At any time, he could be swept over, and all your efforts would have been for naught.
They try tossing a life ring, but it falls short. The situation appears hopeless.
But we were close enough where we could see the fear in his eyes.
A rescue chopper is called in to try and reach him with the life ring.
It was a 1 in a million shot. If it went a little bit too far past him, he may have been swept over the falls.
Then, disaster. The downdraft of the rotor blades throws the man off his feet. He desperately clings to the rock, his legs dangling over the edge.
My heart sunk because I thought he was going to be washed over the falls.
Knowing they have only seconds left before all is lost, a crewman on the chopper makes one last-ditch toss. The man dives, grabbing hold of the ring. But then, there's more trouble.
The victim was swept underneath the ice. He had the ring just around his one arm and his elbow.
Gary and his partner scale along the frozen shoreline, braving the current that tugs them toward a watery grave. In all his years as a firefighter, Gary's never faced a rescue this perilous.
One wrong move by the victim, and he may have been lost. One wrong move by us, and we may have lost one of us.
Finally, they reach him, just in time.
Sergeant Moriarty was able to grab his one hand. He had him by 4 fingers. That was all that was between this gentleman and going over the falls.
Gary harnesses himself to the man, and together, they're hoisted to safety. Despite severe hypothermia, he makes a full recovery. Thanks to the men who refused to give up when his life was so close to slipping away.
It really was a great feeling, and everybody really worked well together, and at the end, it was something really to celebrate.
Phoenix, Arizona.
15 minutes, 10 minutes.
During demolition of the old convention center, a roof collapsed. Workers make a terrifying discovery. Their colleague, Casey Johansson, is crushed by 500,000 pounds of concrete and steel. Paramedic Mike Velasco, a 24-year veteran, fears the worst.
My first thought was, there's no way that we're going to be able to do this. There's half the parking structure roof collapsed on him. How are we going to get him out?
It will take all of Mike's determination and experience to keep Casey alive until his legs can be freed. But after 2 hours, the grim reality becomes apparent. To save Casey's life, the rescuers may have to amputate his legs on scene.
Hey, we need this room to work, okay? Let's make it easier for us.
A trauma surgeon is brought in to perform the operation.
Nobody wanted to go to Plan B, but I truly believe that we weren't going to be able to extricate him alive.
We get a pressure on him. All right.
Mike refuses to leave Casey's side, ignoring a commander's order for a shift change.
There was no way that I was going to leave on my own. They would have had to kick me out.
But then, hour 6, and there's a breakthrough. Hydraulic jacks pry open a small wedge in the concrete, and it may allow rescuers to reach him from beneath the collapse.
You see that there's part of the frame that might be able to cut it from below.
It works. Crews can finally free Casey's crushed legs.
If we get a chain in there, then we can just start hooking it up. Yeah.
Then, after 7.5 grueling hours, the moment everyone's been waiting for. Casey Johansson is pulled from the death trap, alive.
Pass it back. 1, 2, 3, let's move. Okay.
Right after they brought him out, the church bells from St. Mary's Basilica were ringing. Right now, that even still today gives me goosebumps. I mean, this was truly a miracle.
Casey recalls the day his life was dramatically changed forever.
After the collapse, I didn't know where I was at the time. I didn't know in what position I was in. The pain felt, it's hard to describe. It's intense to the point that you can't stand it.
Casey remains conscious throughout the entire ordeal.
They didn't tell me the reason why the surgeons showed up. I thought it was a little strange that they were there, that they were called in.
Casey's eternally indebted to the men who dug deep to save his life.
I'm grateful for them, for the doctors, for the nurses, for the fire department, all those that were there on site.
He was part of our team that day, a part of our lives that day.
I feel very blessed to be alive.
New Delhi, India. An electrical fire turns an office building into a blazing 12-story inferno. Dozens of terrified workers climb to the roof and wait to be rescued. Suddenly, emergency personnel spot several victims still trapped on the 6th floor, pleading for help. Firefighters spray them with water in a desperate attempt to hold back the searing heat. A fire truck with a high-rise ladder finally arrives. It doesn't reach. But it's just close enough for the victims to escape. One by one, they climb down to safety. Up on the roof, the situation is growing dire. There's no way for firefighters to reach the stranded employees. Realizing the stakes, a nearby construction crew has an ingenious idea. They rig a makeshift bridge out of rope and bamboo and stretch it across the street to the building. With fire quickly racing to the top floor, the terrified victims make their way across the unstable structure. At 120 feet in the air, one misstep would mean certain death. The heroic construction workers help them crawl across the bridge, knowing it could collapse at any moment. But incredibly, it holds. More than 300 people make it out safely and are tearfully reunited with their loved ones. Thanks to firefighters and everyday heroes who went above and beyond the call of duty.
Coming up, a snowboarder is buried alive by a killer avalanche.
No!
Now his friends must put their own lives in danger to save him.
Serious help.
Plus, Good Samaritans brave floodwaters to rescue a stranded driver. But hope is sinking fast.
I was thinking, we're going to watch this poor woman just drown and there's nothing we can do.
That's straight ahead on Most Daring.
Pueblo, Colorado. Heavy rains wreak havoc on the roads. And for a 35-year-old woman, hope is sinking fast. Her SUV is trapped in floodwaters. Even worse, she can't swim. Rocky Kosla watches from the banks.
I could see this lady inside the car moving around. The front of the car started to dip, and water actually went to about halfway up the windshield.
Rocky acts fast, along with bystander Howard Absetz.
We realized that nobody else was going to go into the water to try to save her, so we just decided to go in and do what we could to try to save this woman's life.
But the SUV is nearly submerged. The driver climbs to the back seat. Rocky furiously tries to break out a window.
I was wailing on that thing with a piece of wood, and I was putting good force on, and I did not make a scratch on there.
2 civilians and a police officer swim to their aid, just as the car disappears beneath the murky water.
I was thinking, we're going to watch this poor woman just drown and there's nothing we can do.
And then, suddenly, a glimmer of hope.
I just reached through where the driver window would be, and it was open.
Working blind, Howard reaches in and grabs hold of the woman. She's jerked to the surface, gasping for air. In a panic, she nearly pulls Rocky under. But Rocky breaks free, and the driver is hauled to safety. Moments later, fire and rescue arrive. They lift her onto the ladder truck. The Good Samaritans, standing on the sunken remains of her car, will be next. Now, the only question is, how did Howard pull the woman through a window that was shut when the car went down?
The window on the vehicle has been a big topic. Something happened there. It was up when the vehicle went in. It was down for however long for me to pull her out. And then it went back up again after she was out of the water. So call it divine intervention or whatever, but it was a miracle that that window went down for the timing that we were there.
The answer remains a mystery. But it's no secret that the quick response of these courageous civilians saved the driver's life.
We weren't going to let this poor woman drown.
And because of that, Rocky and Howard are honored with a prestigious award for heroism. Quebec, Canada. Flawless conditions attract skiers and snowboarders to the slopes of Mont Albert. The fresh powder is every shredder's dream. But it's about to become snowboarder Benny Caron's worst nightmare. Just as Benny disappears behind the rocks, he triggers a massive avalanche.
Oh, no! Oh, God. Oh, God. He's in big trouble.
Benny's friend and cameraman Jean-Pierre scans the slopes for any sign of life.
We thought Benny was dead.
Oh, my God.
We couldn't see where he was. We had to wait for the snow cloud to disappear to see something.
Then, he spots something. It's Benny.
He is moving. He's picked up his head.
In this remote location, there are no rescue teams. Benny's only chance of survival will hinge on the rapid response of his friends. But the mountainside is still unstable.
We had to move fast. The risk of another avalanche was very high.
Thinking only of their friend, Jean-Pierre and others rush to Benny's aid. Incredibly, they find him alive, but shell-shocked by the sudden disaster.
When I wake up and I see the blue sky, I was just wondering, where am I?
Benny knew he was in trouble the moment the entire mountain moved beneath his board.
I was stopped on the slab of snow that was going down, so I couldn't go nowhere.
Benny spit from the killer cloud before he's swallowed again by 1,000 tons of bone-crushing ice and snow.
I couldn't breathe. No air was coming in through my nose or my mouth. That's where I thought, I'm gonna die.
Jean-Pierre and others hastily convert their equipment sled into a makeshift stretcher. Benny's rushed off the mountain with 2 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and a broken knee. But thanks to friends who risked their own lives, he survives the frightening encounter with a white wall of death.
I feel quite lucky to be alive right now.
Up next, a carnival worker rushes to save a woman who's fallen from a Ferris wheel and nearly topples to his death. Plus, a Coast Guard diver is in a desperate struggle to rescue 2 men swept under a dam.
I actually thought I was going to have to pull up, a deceased person.
When Most Daring returns.
Punta Gorda, Florida. Within these dangerous waters, 2 men are fighting for their lives. Jim Moss and C.W. Liu were clearing debris from the dam when both workers slipped into the violent overflow. Even worse, the men can't swim away from the dam. Each is tethered to a metal cable that's tugging them down into the churning current. There's no way for rescue boats to reach them. So it's up to Coast Guard diver Jonathan Rice.
When I was on my way down, I could see the whites in their eyes, you know, scared. Very, very, very bad situation.
Rice drops in, and not a moment too soon.
Once I got down, CW's face was just about purple. So I was like, okay, this guy's going first.
When I saw the orange and white helicopter, I knew I was going to be saved. It was like a complete relief went over my body.
CW desperately latches onto his rescuer.
I was either going up that cable or he wasn't going up that cable, one of the two.
But there's a problem. CW's tether is yanking them both back under the water. As they rise again, Rice pulls a knife from his belt. Hanging in midair, he slices through.
I fished out my knife and I cut CW free and then gave the thumbs up to the helicopter.
The two are pulled aboard. But then, a terrifying turn. CW's partner, Jim, has disappeared.
And then once we were up there, and the flight mechanic tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, the other guy just went down.
Rice drops quickly toward the last place Jim was seen. There's no sign of him.
I actually thought I was going to have to pull up, you know, a deceased person.
But when the diver reaches into the water, a hand bursts from the torrent.
All of a sudden, I see a big shadow through the column of water. So I stick my hand out.
I looked him dead in the eyes. I said, you're going to be okay. We're going to get you out of here.
Again, a safety line threatens to doom the rescue. But another swing of the blade cuts Jim loose. The two men hang on as the chopper lifts them to safety. They're finally pulled inside. The workers survive with minor injuries and a huge debt of gratitude.
I really thought I was facing death that day.
I'm here today because of the United States Coast Guard and John Rice. He told us when he come down that rope, I'm going to get you out of this problem. And he did.
Campo Grande, Brazil. A Ferris wheel ride turns to terror. Maria de Fatima has fallen out of the gondola and now dangles helplessly 40 feet above the ground. Restarting it could shake her loose, triggering a deadly fall. With no time to wait for professional rescuers, Carnival employee Jose Carlos scurries up the spokes of the wheel. He reaches Maria. But with only one free hand, Jose can't push her back into the seat. Suddenly, She slips from his grasp. But Maria's leg remains wedged. More park workers rush to her aid. But then, it's Jose who takes a fall. When he tries to get closer to Maria, Jose's foot slides off the bar. His legs lock around the metal spoke, saving him from a fatal plummet. A nearby employee helps Jose regain his footing. Refusing to give up, he bravely joins the others. Finally, the men manage to push her safely back into the gondola. Thanks to Jose and his coworkers, Maria's shocking ordeal is now over.
I felt scared to death up there. I was screaming, "Get me out of here, get me out of here."
Jose's heroic efforts could have cost him his life, but it was a price he was willing to pay to save another.
I look at her and it makes me so happy that she's alive. When I look at myself, I'm sure happy to be alive as well.
Neither will soon forget the day a simple Ferris wheel became a house of horrors.
Coming up, a race car driver is trapped in a fiery crash. Now a trackside photographer must brave the flames to save him. Plus, firefighters make a treacherous climb to rescue a man stuck 500 feet in the air.
He was just hanging there by his safety equipment.
Then, a lion tamer uses his bare hands to free his brother from the jaws of a man-eating beast. When Most Daring returns.
West Terre Haute, Indiana. Firefighters respond to an emergency medical service call, only to discover a jaw-dropping surprise.
We received a call of someone unconscious at a tower location. Unfortunately, whoever it was forgot to mention that he was 468 feet up in the air.
While working high up on the tower, telecom employee Alan Cook lost consciousness. His life literally dangles by a thread, almost 500 feet in the air.
He was just hanging there by his safety equipment.
My reaction was, oh my, how are we going to get him down? We had never performed anything like this before.
At the time, our department did not have any high-angle rope rescue procedures.
3 courageous firefighters, Scott, Kajitani, and Watson, volunteer for the dangerous task of climbing 50 stories to retrieve Alan.
The highest I'd ever climbed before was about 50 to 75 feet.
The rescuers rig up their harnesses and carefully ascend the massive tower.
I'm climbing, I'm thinking, wow, what is this thing? It's a big red blinky light, and that clicked in my head, that's for aircraft.
Freezing winds drive the mercury down to a numbing minus 30 degrees.
We knew frostbite was going to be a condition, not only for him, but for the rescuers themselves.
Finally, they reach Alan, only to make a shocking discovery. He suffered a brain aneurysm. And in his disabled state of mind, he's refusing to go down.
He wanted to keep climbing up with that brain bleed. He was really disoriented. He didn't want to be taken down.
There's no time to waste. Rescuers struggle to pry Alan's fingers off the tower. Then, forcibly lower him inch by grueling inch. After descending a few hundred feet, the rescuers are able to hand Alan off to a ladder truck. He's lowered to the ground and rush to a waiting ambulance. Incredibly, Alan survives, overcoming extreme heights, freezing temperatures, and a confused victim whose life was in grave danger. The firefighters pulled off one of the department's most amazing rescues.
I don't consider myself a hero because this is just part of my job.
Tacoma, Washington. It's Saturday night, and the stands are packed at a local speedway. Fans gear up for an exciting race, unaware that they're about to witness the most harrowing rescue in track history. A chain collision traps 3 drivers inside an inferno, and there's no way to reach them. The crowd is horrified. Photographer John Bodwell is down on the track.
All of a sudden, just poof, just both cars were fully engulfed in flames. I dropped my camera right in the grass and took off running.
Springing into action, John grabs a fire extinguisher. 2 drivers escape through the wall of flames. But driver Mike Easley crawls out, still on fire. John fights bravely to put out the flames, but then, disaster. His extinguisher runs out.
When that extinguisher expired, it was like, oh my God, this guy's dead now. It's a weird feeling to know that you tried to save someone's life and you possibly failed at doing it.
With fire crews still minutes away, Mike's life is in John's hands. Determined to save the driver, he grabs another extinguisher. Finally, the flames are doused. Thanks to the heroic photographer, Mike survives.
When I saw people actually running away from me, that was, my life is done. I am done. That's about the second I realized I was gonna die.
There is fire everywhere. I'm on fire, I'm looking at my hands are on fire. I have no idea how this happened.
If not for John's resolve, Mike would have surely lost this horrifying race against time.
I knew if I didn't do something, this guy was gonna burn to death. There was no doubt in my mind.
Still to come, courageous neighbors scramble to save an elderly man caught in a deadly blaze. Plus, a heroic cop grabs a woman before she falls off a bridge. But can he possibly hang on? Find out next on Most Daring.
Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Tower Drive Bridge, the highest span in the city, looms 200 feet above the mighty Fox River. Today, it will be the site of one of the most dramatic rescues ever caught on tape.
County put out a call to possible suicidal subject northbound 41.
Police rushed to catch up with a female driver who threatened to throw herself off the bridge.
Therefore, we're at about 100 miles an hour crossing Tower Drive Bridge.
Trooper Les Bolt is about to put his life on the line to keep that from happening. The woman, Tina Zahn, reaches the highest point on the span and pulls over.
I have the subject stopped right on top of the drug bridge.
She steps out of the car. Trooper Bolt sprints after her. When suddenly, just as Bolt reaches her, the distraught woman dives head first. At that moment, Sergeant Bill Morgan arrives on the scene.
Well, I pulled alongside and I couldn't see Tina's on anymore. So I picked up my mic and called our dispatch center, and my words were, she jumped.
What he doesn't realize is that Trooper Bolt has made an amazing save, grabbing hold of Tina at the last possible second. But now, he's in danger of falling in himself.
She was pulling on Les Bolt so hard that she was lifting his feet off the ground.
Together, the officers pull Tina back onto the bridge.
Got her. Down on the ground. Ma'am, it's down on the ground. Grab her. She was just stepping over the rail. I just grabbed her arm. My God, you did a great job.
Completely recovered from her depression, Tina is eternally grateful to the men who pulled her back from the brink of death.
I did not expect to get rescued. I was expecting to jump.
Thankfully, 3 brave officers reached out to help when Tina needed it most.
Do I think they're heroes? Yeah. Yeah, I think they're heroes, definitely.
Ankara, Turkey. On the 5th floor of an apartment building, Feyzullah Öztürk is trapped and badly burned after a propane tank explosion. Bystanders plead with him not to jump. But if someone doesn't reach the man soon, the smoke and flames may leave him no choice. Residents in the unit below take action. They try to reach him with a folding ladder. Öztürk climbs out, his pants smoldering. But they can't get the ladder extended. It slips and falls to the ground. A brave neighbor clutches his legs and holds on tight. And then it happens. Öztürk lets go. The Good Samaritan hangs on with all his might. Using his last ounce of strength, the man pulls Öztürk inside. The hellish nightmare is over. Öztürk makes it out alive, in no small part due to a good neighbor and a giant leap of faith.
Still to come, a killer lion turns on its trainer. Can his brother save him before he's eaten alive? Find out next on Most Daring.
Northern Iran. Terror inside a circus cage. Without any warning, the king of the beasts unexpectedly attacked worker Imad Hassami. The grueling struggle has gone on for nearly an hour. The animal's teeth are sunk deep into Imad's wrist. His fingers dangle from the cat's mouth. His brother, Abdul, a lion tamer, grabs hold of its mane, trying desperately to save his sibling. Abdul reaches for a steel prod, hoping to break the animal's hold. But the beast goes in for the kill. Abdul cries out for help, fearing his brother's life is slipping away. The animal's powerful jaws lock onto Imad's jugular. Desperate, Abdul tries to pry his brother free with his bare hands. Other rescuers rush to the cage. But the lion drags its prey deeper into its den, ready to eat Imad alive. An animal control officer arrives with a tranquilizer gun. He fires a shot. Instantly woozy, the animal releases Imad. Abdul rushes inside and pulls his wounded brother to safety. He suffered more than 20 puncture wounds and several broken bones. But incredibly, Imad survives. Abdul is stunned that the lion he's tamed for 10 years nearly killed his brother.
It attacked him perhaps more than 20 times. I could actually hear the breaking sound of my brother's bones. I held the lion for 45 minutes. My brother kept calm. Anyone else would have been finished.
If not for the lion tamer's unflinching bravery, Imad's life would have surely been lost to the jaws of death.
These are the true stories of real people who owe their lives to the courage and sacrifice of perfect strangers.
I would like to say thank you to all those on site that were helping me.
They've got all my respect. They saved my life.
Join us next time for more incredible rescues on Most Daring.